Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome on to another edition here of the Patriots Touchback Podcasts. We have been on a bit of a hiatus for the last couple of months. Not a lot has been happening in the NFL landscape, but we are now only 1 day away from training camp, which means the NFL season is officially on the move. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe button while you're at it. You follow us on all our social media platforms, and you follow our podcast on Spotify as well. And I'm delighted this evening to have Mr. Nick Cosgrove and Kieran Stanley on with me tonight. Gentlemen, how are we doing? How are you enjoying your summer? Because the weather's been absolutely beautiful down in the south here.
Typical Manchester weather. It's rained. It's rained. It's rained. I think I've seen the sun 3 days.
That sounds about right. No, it's having an all right summer. A couple of holidays. Been out to Croatia. Been out to France. And I'm glad we're doing this podcast actually because it gives me an opportunity to drag myself away from EA College Football 25, which I've been spamming big time the last few days. If anyone's not played it yet, you should. It's 10 years in the making and it's very addictive.
Like most video games, it's very addictive. I have seen a lot of people lose their absolute marbles on that game. Someone actually posted, because obviously I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, someone posted the first game he played was against Ohio State. He was Michigan and they were 100-0 up. I'm pretty sure that's on amateur level, if I'm probably mistaken. But no. Okay, guys, we've got a lot to get through tonight, so let's crack on with it. So, training camp officially starts in less than 24 hours' time, if I say so. A lot of talk has been talking about our brand new stud of a quarterback in the name of Drake Maye. He had some good moments during minicamp, still problem with his footwork at times, but he has been impressing a lot of scouts and a lot of the coaching staff. The question I want to ask you two is this: is there a chance that Drake Maye might overcome absolutely all the odds and start week one on the road to Cincinnati? Nick, we'll start with you.
No. His pre-camp press conference, Gerard Mayo said, where have I got it? He believes that Jacoby Brissett will be the number one QB. It will be open to a competition, but he does believe that Jacoby is the best fit at the moment. And it's nice to hear you saying that he's had a problem with his footwork, because that's what I said when we drafted him. But, you know, he's a Patriot now. I'll get behind him.
Mm-hmm.
So he's better than Matt Jones. So, you know, he's onto a decent start. But yeah, I think there may be a time where we do see him, you know, if games are dead, you know, late into the third, early fourth quarter, he might get some game time. But I think it's more about preparing him the right way. It's a new era at the Patriots. So, you know, I think it's about doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think there's a chance, but I think it's a very small chance. I think we're pretty much in a situation where we're resigned to the fact that it's going to be Jacoby Brissett who's got a leg up and is going to be the QB1 certainly heading into training camp, will be the heavy favourite to start week one against the Bengals. But Gerard Mayo also said in his press conference today that, you know, as much as he expects it to be Jacoby Brissett, it's open for competition, and he wouldn't rule out Drake Maye playing if he lights it up. I think his words were, if he lights it up, then it's going to give us a decision to make. Now, we know that Drake Maye is much more talented than Jacoby Brissett. So there is a chance that if he has a stud training camp and dices up the defense, and in the joint practices, I think with the Eagles, if he looks good against a good defense there as well, then there is a chance that he could play week one. But I would say it's pretty minimal at this stage, and he would have to be probably absolutely phenomenal in training camp to have that chance.
It would probably need to also throw between 7 and 10 touchdowns throughout the entirety of the preseason, have 130 passer rating, we would have a chance of that possibly.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know how much he's going to play in the preseason games. You'd expect to see a fair amount of him, but also they're going to want to give reps to Joe Milton and Bailey Zappi as well. So I don't know whether May will just, whether it will be progressive, whether he gets 2 quarters, 3 quarters a game, maybe it's just 1 quarter per game or whatever. But yeah, I don't know how much he's gonna get in preseason.
Yeah, it all depends how it all pans out for me. I want Drake Maye to start because I feel like he adds a different sort of dimension to what we've been wanting for a long, long time here. But if they're just going to play it safe, then no wonder the critics or the media have been saying New England will only win 4 to 5 games this season because Jacoby Brissett, he isn't going to wow you. Yes, he'll put the ball in the right places. However, he has also put the ball in the wrong hands at times in his career. So it's a little bit hit and miss regarding Jacoby Brissett. Drake Maye, he's still very, very young, but at the end of the day, if you picked him with the 3rd overall pick, and if he's as good as he looks, as he's good on paper, as he now looks good on the football field currently regarding of OTAs and minicamp, then at some point you've got to say throw him in the fire and let's see if he can manage it. Because that's basically how Justin Herbert had to go about it all. He literally got thrown straight into the fire in week 1. Yes, okay.
With no preparation, yeah. No, I see that.
With no preparation, no competent backup either. So, but we do have a competent, but don't have a competent backup. We have a competent bridge. We have an incompetent backup in Bailey Zappi, but the bridge is actually more approachable. But if Drake Maye does exceed expectations in preseason, doesn't throw any picks, but throws between 6 to 8 touchdowns, I find it very hard to believe, but there is a chance he could start. And if he does start, I think that would upset a lot of teams because Cincinnati, they've seen how Jacoby Brissett plays, obviously because he played for Cleveland. They know how he works and they're going to understand him, know how he plays. You throw Drake Maye in there, and Cincinnati were okay, well, we haven't got any tape on him whatsoever, so we're going to have to try and figure out on the fly here what he's good at and what he's not good at. And it may take him 3 quarters, and by the time the 3 quarters is done, New England might actually be clear by the time the 4th quarter arrives. But this is all wishful thinking here.
Yeah, and I guess in a way, like it's a tough first game. Like Cincinnati defensively aren't like phenomenal, like they're okay, but it's as much as we're good defensively, we don't want to be chasing the game and letting a rookie try and pull the game back when we're down by 3 scores, because the Bengals have an offense capable of doing that. And I know we're good defensively, but they still have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, even like in the backfield, like with like Zach Moss, can score touchdowns in short yardage. Like they've got weapons there. Even Mike Gesicki, I think, is a great fit in that offense. So like, we don't want to be in a situation where we're down 21-3 after 2 quarters and suddenly May's playing catch up and playing, and just sending go balls to Tyquan Thornton that's speculative because he might not even make the roster. But, we don't want to put him in a situation where he's trying to play hero ball early on and ends up throwing 3 picks in the first game. So it's tough. It's all about when to introduce him, and we could be 0-4 in the first 4 games. It is completely plausible. And at that point, do you think, okay, well, season's lost already. Should we just stick him out there? So I think when we did the last podcast, I think I predicted his first start would come in London, but could come before then.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to last season, which terrifies me and it still gives me nightmares. But you had the issue where Mac wasn't getting it done and Belichick left him out there out of spite or for whatever reason, and Mac just got purely broken. And by the time he brought Zappi in, it was no good. And then he put Jones back in, and Jones was affected, and it was the biggest shit show that you could watch. Now, I am not, like I said, I'm not comparing Maye to Jones or anything like that. But what I am saying is we do need to be careful that we do not put this guy in too much. I get what you say about Justin Herbert, but the Chargers back then had more quality up front than we've got right now. And I think the issue is that while the experts say we're going to finish with 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins, whatever it is, you don't want to be throwing Maye in at the deep end when he's on a hide into nothing. Like we said about, Kieran said about the London game, I think that was the consensus from a lot of us that would probably be as early as we're gonna see him, because our bye week's not for like 3 weeks after or something ridiculous like that. So, I think I'm just cautious that we don't do the wrong thing by trying to move too quickly. Walk before you can run, sort of thing. Let him develop. There was a reason why he wasn't the number 1 pick. There was a reason why he wasn't the number 2 pick. He did have issues that everyone looked at and said, "Oh, I'm not sure." Now, was he the 3rd best pick in the draft? Probably. He was the 3rd. Whether he was the 3rd best quarterback, don't know. Value, whatever. It's all opinionated. But I think we just have to be careful. This is not a 1-year plan. It's a new era. We've got time. We don't need to be, 16 and 1. We don't need to win every game. We just need to build slowly and create the right atmosphere and the right environment for the team to move forward.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree with you. And I just say, if the QB1 competition is open, then they need to go for it. They really, really need to go for it. Couple of things before we crack on with the training camp and who we think could make the roster, this, that, and the other. Matt Judon he's still sort of holding out for a new contract or a new extension. He is coming off the back of an injury, of a season-ending injury. I've seen a lot of fans that basically turn around and say, just pay the guy, just pay him what he wants. He deserves it, this, that, and the other. And to a certain degree, yes, he does. But he was our best pass rusher. And it was only up until Josh Uche, I think at the final 3, maybe 4 games, then all of a sudden Josh Uche came to life. So, I mean, look, I want Matt Judon to stay. I think he's an absolute home wrecker when we needed him to. The pass rush in New England have had has actually been better than what it's been in recent years. Can we get a deal done for Judon? It's not like we ain't got the cap space for it. We've got plenty of cap space for it, but it's a case of, are they going to give someone money or someone a lot of money considering they've just come off a season-ending injury?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take. Go on, Nick. You go.
Oh, I was just going to say, according to PFT, the issue is not how much we're paying him; it's about how we're paying him. And he wants this, he wants that, and the Patriots want to pay him, so much up front and then bonuses and what. And so I think it's not so much how much we're paying him. I think everyone's in sort of like the same sort of landing area as to what we're paying him, but it's all about how you're going to pay him and how much is going to be guaranteed and how much is going to, how much he's going to be protected against injury. So I think that based on what I've read at PFT, that's where the issue is. But everyone turned up today for their medicals and their comeback checks and whatever else. It was all the medical stuff today. he was there, he was in attendance. So, as was Godshaw, who's also wanting a new contract. So everyone turned up today, and everyone seems to be, in. Let's say.
Yeah, I think Matt Judon wants to stay. I think the team want to keep him around. I think Elliot Wolford said, "Look, we're trying to find a resolution on this," and it's nice to have a little bit of transparency on that, because we normally get the classic "we'll see how it goes" line with Bill Belichick. Well, it seems like Elliot Wolf does want to retain him, and I think not only is he good for the team in terms of production and in terms of the pass rush, but also good for culture as well. He's very popular in the locker room. He's got a good vibe about him, a big personality, a big character, and you need guys like that. I don't think there'd be a massive market for him. I mean, like, he's 31, he's come off of a couple of injuries or whatever. So trade value wise, you're not going to get a lot for him. It's probably not worth trading him, and I don't think he's going to cost you too much. As Nick said, it's more about the structure, and I'm fully expecting that he'll get re-signed, and we'll get him on the 2 or 3 year deal, and then we'll see what happens in a few years. But I don't think this is overly complicated.
I don't think it's overly complicated either. I think they have. If Judon does re-sign, then basically New England have re-signed the players that we wanted to keep. It was the one thing we needed to. Then we had a good core of players that were actually half decent for us, even though our record last year does not reflect that. But what it has now done is it's gave us a good foundation to work with. An offensive line, which is absolute mess. We now have a couple of different financial pieces in free agency, and also whilst doing the draft as well. The receiving core, it may not be top notch. It may not be bang. It may not even be bang average. But considering what we've had to work with over the last 3 or 4 years since Brady left, it does look like on paper it looks significantly better. Now, this is just on paper. This is just me paraphrasing here. But, I'm hoping to see at least one of our rookies, take off this year. Because if they do, we already know Demario Douglas is the number 1 receiver. There was talk from Greg Bedard that apparently Jalen Polk could be that person who could literally go to new heights in the new season. I mean, he does look like the all-complete wide receiver. So too does Demario Douglas. I still have this love for Javon Baker, because I just feel like he's just something we have missed for God knows how many years. When was the last time we had an absolute speedster who could take the top off the defense and literally just get touchdowns for fun? The only person I can think of is Randy Moss, but he is the most complete wide receiver we ever had.
Yeah, and you wouldn't necessarily say Baker's a burner either, but he's a vertical threat. And I agree with you. I think he's got a role to play, and I do really like him. You're probably going into the season with your first 3 potentially being Polk, Douglas, and Bourne. I don't think Juju's going to make the roster, and then Baker may factor in as your 4. So I think that's certainly improved from like you said, what we've had to put up with the last couple of years.
I mean, Amendola and Edelman they were no slouches, but they were really sort of undercut routes, weren't they? They were sort of underrunners. Probably Moss, I would say, was probably the last sort of like go-to absolute baller.
Gordon, to a certain extent, did a little bit of that at times. I mean, not nowhere near to the level of Randy Moss, but Josh Gordon had a spell where he was pretty effective in our offense and was our vertical threat receiver.
But by the time he come to us, he was running on concrete blocks at the time. It wasn't exactly his in his pomp, was he, when he was in Cleveland?
No, but he was still all right. Like, he was. I wouldn't have called him a bust. I thought he was reasonably good, but
no, he's one of those receivers that it was one of those receivers who was extremely talented, but obviously had his head in the wrong types of situations, shall we say?
Can we just go back to Matt Judon for a second? I want to raise a point I saw from earlier. The difference between the personalities and the characters, and we said about Matt Judon. You know, he wants this new contract, but he's still turning up to training camp. He's still doing the right thing about the team, and that shows good character behind the scenes. But then you see Hassan Reddick, who has just been traded to the Jets from the Eagles, supposedly had an agreement in place with the Jets in preseason that he would get the extension he wanted, providing he proves that he can play at the level they expect, but has now decided to go back on all of that and is holding out a training camp until he gets a new contract and is expected to be fined for everything he's missing. And that just shows two players in very similar situations, but one is putting the team first and getting on with it and will resolve it in his own way, and the other one's toys out the pram.
Yep. No, but and then again, New England have always been a franchise that we have always when we've had players that have come in and we've respected them, they've respected us as a franchise. They will get deals done, and there is good relations with regarding to us. I'm not surprised with Hassan Reddick because it's the New York Jets. You know, they're the red-headed stepchild of the AFC East. You're just there, so I have no sympathy for them lot over there in New York because I don't expect anything better. But I will expect them to be bent. I will expect Hassan Reddick to bend them over a barrel and take everything for what they're worth, because that's the sort of culture that they've got going on down there. But anyway, I digress. But no, regarding of Judon, look, he is a talented player. You've got the 1-2 punch there here alongside with Josh Uche. Not to mention as well, Christian Barmore is coming off an absolute fantastic season last year with 8.5, I think it was like 8.5 sacks. I think he had last season. Just an absolute human wrecking ball, considering we only had 4 wins. But it didn't look like that on paper with the way the defense was playing. I think it was.
And you even
go on, Graham.
I was going to say, you even got contribution from Anthony Jennings as well. And Keon White's going into year 2. So I think this pass rush is in a really good position. If Judon re-signs, I think we're in a good place with it. Keon
White, I'm looking forward to seeing him really take a next step because his potential is ridiculous. I think Keon White's potential is absolutely stupid. But I agree with you.
He was one of those that it was unfortunate that because he was first round talent, but because of COVID and everything, else, and they had so many college players stay in the college game that extra year, it all sort of got shuffled backwards. So I think we picked him up in the second or the third round, but he was like first round talent because in any other year he'd have probably been picked sort of mid to late first round, and we got him in the second or the third. I mean, he lost that first year through he had that injury and what have you, but he had a good year last year. Barmore had an absolute barnstormer. You know, if they can come back and turn it on, all these people that are saying 3 wins, 4 wins, be prepared to swallow it because there's more wins coming.
There will be more wins coming. You know, as I've already said in previous shows, as long as this offense has got a pulse this coming season, guess what? We're going to be infinitely better. Because we had no pulse. We didn't even have a pulse last season. We weren't breathing. We was on life support, and life support machine weren't working that well either. So, we were just completely
on the blink,
in a vegetative state, shall we say? Anyway, but no, go back to your point here regarding of the pass rush. I think for the next 2 or 3 years, I think we are in a very, very good position. But it pales in comparison to what we've got in the secondary. Holy crap! Gonzalez returning, and I hope he comes back and gets Defensive Player of the Year because this guy, his first 2 hard jobs he had to do in his first 2 games was shut down AJ Brown for the Eagles and shut down Tyreek Hill for the Dolphins. And he done an amazing job. And this is a rookie, by the way. This ain't some veteran who's been in the game for like 4, 5, 6, 7 years now. That was his first 2 games. And he ended up looking like a corner that Oh, who does that remind me of again? Oh, that's it. Stephon Gilmore.
Free
Just
agent.
locking,
You said as well, Carl.
just locking people up.
You said, I remember a podcast we done obviously a little while ago now, this break, but because we talked about like the fixtures and the run of receivers that Gonzalez is going to go up against in 2024, and it is a baptism by fire. But I remember you saying, Carl, that if he locks them down, that kid's an all pro, like 100%, because like you don't come up against a gauntlet of receivers, elite receivers like that. And if you lock all of them down, I just don't see how you would not become an all pro or at very least a pro bowler.
Absolutely. I mean, the last time we had one of those was Jake Bailey, and he was a punter, I believe. So yeah, that's kind of says it all, really. But you look through the secondary, and obviously, remember we're going to have Marcus Jones back from injury as well, who's mostly going to be playing as a nickel corner, and will obviously probably play a kickoff returner, which probably puts Jalen Reagor, the receiver, in a little bit of a difficult position here, because if Marcus Jones does come back and starts where he left off, that's going to put Reagor in the hot seat of maybe not making the cut. Is that realistic?
Yeah, we spoke about receivers before when we predicted kind of what receivers would make the roster, and we spoke about if you're wanting a return specialist, and perhaps you do keep Reagor on the roster. But if Marcus Jones is your returner, then there's probably no need to have Jalen Reagor. For me, if it came down to a choice between keeping Jalen Reagor and Kayshon Boutte, I would keep Boutte because I think the upside is far higher. I know he's obviously had a few issues off the field, but he's been cleared of that now, and I still think the talent is undeniable. So, I would rather keep him. But also, go on,
Kevin. I was going to say, I was going to say the locks so far. What I should think of as receivers, obviously, Demario Douglas. Obviously, you put your two rookies in there because for obvious reasons, you need to see how they get on. You could probably say KJ Osborne fits in there. So that's your fourth receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't know how well he was. I know he was injured, but I don't know how good he really honestly is. So
I'd be shocked if he made the roster, being honest.
I think he will make the roster. But if he ends up having a shocking training camp and a shocking preseason, then it wouldn't surprise me. But New England would take a bit of a cap hit on Smith-Schuster, though. So that's probably why we're keeping hold of him.
Because you got Kendrick Bourne as well. But
he's on. He'll be on the pup list.
Yeah,
he's coming off that injury, so I think he'll end up on the pup list. If he is good to go, however, then that only keeps one space open. Then, so that's the likes of Jalen Reagor, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kayshon Boutte. They could be in a bit of a difficult position there where they might not get in. I mean, the one receiver I think that really needs to. I think the locks, I'll just say this. The four locks I'll see happening right now is obviously the two rookies, Demario Douglas, KJ Osborne. I can see them four being the ultimate locks. The one receiver who I want to see ball out in training camp and as well as in preseason is Kayshon Boutte. Now he's got his betting charges dropped now. He's a free man. He's now clean. He's good to go. Now focus on football. That's all Boutte needs to do now. Focus on your ball, because if he plays like he did at LSU, then we know what sort of talent that he could possess.
He had a good mini camp as well. He's had a good spring, I think.
He's had a good.
Yeah, I think
he spent a lot of time with Drake Maye. He spent a lot of time with Drake Maye over the spring, doing lots of different route.
If he can sort his mentality out and focus and work hard and get his head down and stop getting involved in the silly stuff and, motivate himself, he is 100% got the ability to make this roster and to be a difference maker. I still think the worst thing for him last year was to get doghoused after the out of bounds against the Eagles, because that's absolutely destroyed his confidence. And like the guy who's like a 6th round pick, and you expect him to make a high pressure catch against Philadelphia in week 1. I don't think doghousing him was the right thing to do. And then we barely saw it for the rest of the season.
Yeah, but that was Belichick, though. He's a hard ass guy.
I know he likes to set standards.
If you do one mistake, that's it. You don't see it. You don't see them now for the rest of the season.
But when,
I would say the see for the rest of the game. But
when the offense is so turgid like it was last season, and you've got this guy who has the ability to make big plays for you, I think you've got to swallow your pride and give him a chance. So I think, I want to see more of him this year. And just going back to the corners for a second, Carl, I still think we need another one. Like, I think that's probably a common opinion amongst Patriots fans. But I'm going to mention one name of someone who actually impressed me a lot at the end of last season, and that was Alex Austin. He had a couple of really good games at the back end of last year. Picked him up, 7th round pick. Was it of Buffalo? And he went to Houston, then to us. Bounced around a bit. But he picked off Josh Allen at the end of last year. He was really good. And if he can continue to develop, we've got a nice little young cornerback tandem there. I'll hopefully see him a little bit more this year because I like what I saw from him, considering he was a late round pick.
So the corners currently as it stands is Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, and obviously Austin, as you've already said.
Wade.
I believe there's Wade as well. Yeah. Miles Bloody Bryan
last year.
Yeah, Miles Bloody Bryan has officially left. Thank goodness for that. I don't want to see him in a Patriots uniform ever again. So there's 5
He can go and hold hands with Jordan Richards.
Oh, what a shame.
Gilmore is a free agent.
Bring him back. Perfect number 2 to Gonzalez. I've been saying it for so long.
Let me just look. How many corners can you fit into this roster? I just want to double
Depends
check.
on your setup.
It depends on your setup.
Just going back to wide receivers.
All right. Sorry there. Cornerbacks, I think you could take 6. So the currently stand,
especially if Jones is a returner, then you can obviously
So you got Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, Alex Austin, Sean Wade, and Isaiah Bolden. That was the other corner that we missed out there. But they've also still got rookies as well. Marcellus Dial, who we took in the 5th round, I believe, or no, early 6th round possibly. And Caleb Ford Dement. That was a free agent pickup. And you've also got Marco Wilson as well. So there's plenty of talent there at that position, but there is a possibility we could go back and go and get Giddy for a season. He ain't going to cost much.
No, and everyone's calling Christian Gonzalez the new Stephon Gilmore in terms of the comparison in terms of the play styles, and what better way for Gilmore to impart that wisdom and experience and coaching on Gonzalez. Like, for them to play together would be great, but just the amount that Gonzalez is going to learn from him, I just think it's great. Like, that would be an ideal cornerback tandem for the next couple of years. I think Gilmore can play 2 more years.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if Stephon Gilmore was to retire at the end of this coming season and ends up joining the Patriots corner staff. So it's just wishful thinking. Right, let's talk about some positional battles on who may get the roster during training camp. We've already talked about.
Before we move on, Carl.
Go on.
Just before we move on, we talked about Marcus Jones there as a returner. He was asked today about the new kickoff rule. For those, I'm sure everyone who's listening to us follows the sport enough to know that there is a new kickoff rule. I'm not going to go into the details to explain it because just watch the XFL. But basically, Marcus Jones was asked about the new kickoff rule, and he said that ultimately, apart from the holes closing faster, it doesn't really change. Everyone's talking about how it hits in the landing zone, and you've got no one can move until the receiver's caught it. And what Marcus Jones was actually saying is, if you take that moment before you catch the ball to survey the field, which any normal player is going to do, you can almost see where the holes are going to open up. and you've just got to be quick. Those holes will close faster. If you can get through one of those holes, if you can thread the needle and make one of those holes, you could be in for a long return of yards. So Marcus Jones was just talking about how, yes, he has been playing punt returner. Yes, he's not bothered by the new kickoff rule. He's quite excited about it. And he just believes it's all about being fast.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, I honestly I haven't watched any of the XFL this season. I haven't, so I can't comment on it. So the only way I'm going to find out is by watching preseason. That's the only way I'm going to be able to find out about it properly. Okay, so positional battles. We already talked about some pretty key ones. Okay, well, you obviously know what the quarterback position was going to be. If it's Jacoby Brissett QB1, Drake Maye QB2, but Zappi QB3, and then Joe Milton at QB4, maybe acting as a hybrid, but I don't think that. No, I'm not seeing any words spoken about him being a hybrid, and I don't think that's going to change. Receivers we spoke about. Tight end position. Obviously Hunter Henry is a lock to obviously start. Austin Hooper is a lock to stock. Jaheim Bell. What? I haven't seen enough of him to actually see how good he can really be. He was at Florida State, but what sort of upside could he bring as the third string tight end, Kez?
Yeah, well, I think he's a good athlete. He's a move tight end. He's someone that is probably like a larger receiver than he is a typical inline tight end. But they've done a few other things with him, like he's played a bit of H-back as well. Like they've kind of moved him around a little bit at Florida State. I guess it comes down to, do you want a guy like that who's a good athlete that could have potential to help you in the passing game as your number 3 tight end? Or do you want to favour someone like Will Cox, who we picked up from Cincinnati, who is primarily a blocking tight end? You could carry 4 tight ends on your roster, but it really depends on what you want. And they may favour wanting a blocker, but I certainly think Bell has got upside. I think this training camp could be interesting for him because I guess he's quite similar to Jonnu Smith in the way he plays. And I know Jonnu Smith, for us, was nowhere near the player he was in Tennessee. But you look at some of the things he done last year for Atlanta, and maybe Bell is that kind of guy. So we'll see what happens. I think there's upside there, definitely. But I think it just comes down to whether they want to have 3 white ends and whether they want to have a blocker on there as well.
Yeah, it's true. But given Alex Van Pelt's desire to run the ball, probably a physical blocking tight end would be more valuable. The problem we've got is no one on the current depth chart fits that description. Mitchell Wilcox, maybe.
Mitchell Wilcox will be the closest.
But he has experience. But Bell's, as you already pointed out, his athleticism potential and his versatility as a player, who could operate as a fullback as well. It's more in line. So Van Pelt actually has a good as another option here of he can use Bell in the backfield. That would allow Mayo to get away with going light at running back. So basically, if you wanted to only take 3 running backs, and you're taking basically Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, and Kelvin Harris. Not the DJ, our running back, Kelvin Harris. Okay, so so that seems to be the option that they are going for there.
I just wonder whether maybe we spoke about what Bell can do in terms of his versatility and has played a bit of H-back. Could we see us deviate to, because we obviously are on offset of the Shanahan system, the West Coast, could we see Bell perhaps play that Kyle Juszczyk role where he's the fullback in the system, but also we see him split out and line up at receiver, he lines up at tight end, he still can catch a few passes a season. I just maybe wonder whether that might be in consideration.
Possibly, but he's nothing like Juszczyk.
No, I mean, he's built nowhere different. Yeah,
he's built nowhere different. Juszczyk is built like a brick. Yeah, we know the rest of the world. Anyhow, right. Move on to the offensive line. So this could be the interesting one because there's a lot of positions available, and we have tooled up on the offensive line. How good we're going to be, I do not know. So apparently, you're allowed to take 10 offensive linemen. Chuck Okafor, Sidi So, David Andrews. Let me put it this way. David Andrews is a lock anyway. Michael Onwenu is a lock. Caden Wallace, I think he will be in. Antonio Maffey, Nick Leverett, Layden Robertson, who's a rookie, so he'll probably be in as well. Tyron Wheatley, and we've still got that useless piece of shit in Vidarian Lowe. Why? he's not good. Vidarian Lowe is just not good. How many times
What's he done to deserve that? What's he done to you to deserve that?
I think just play.
He nearly killed Mac Jones he nearly killed Mac Jones 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. On 3 separate
I
games.
would put that on Matt Jones.
You know that classic meme from you see from football stadiums of the security guard patting someone down, but he's putting like next to no effort into it. That is literally like watching Vidarian Lowe.
I mean, I think obviously Cole Strange, I assume, is going to be on PUP because he had surgery on his knee, so I assume he's PUP. Okafor spent a lot of mini camp in the spring at left tackle, so I don't know whether he's our first choice. There's obviously the guy we drafted, Wallace. He was sort of like earmarked to be a left tackle. I think you have to think that Jake Andrews is going to make the roster as well, because he's our backup. He's our backup center to David. So, and he can play a little bit of guard. So I would say he's probably a lock. I really do want to see Maffey kick on, because he had some unbelievable moments last year where he played well, but he then had some moments where he was just completely and utterly useless. And I think that's just part of still learning the game, and you're ever evolving, and as things move and you see new things and it confuses you. So hopefully he takes a step forward, but I do think he's got potential at guard. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be bothered. I will say it a bit nicer. If we don't have Lowe, I won't be upset.
I think it's interesting to look back to minicamp. Obviously, I think Okorafor is going to play left tackle, but there were times at the end of the minicamp where Onwenu kicked inside and Caden Wallace played right tackle, obviously the position he played at Penn State. So is there a little bit of reshuffling going on just to try and get a strongest line possible? You look at the guard situation. Without Cole Strange, it's a very inexperienced guard core. Like, you think about like Leverett's your most experienced, then you've got Sidi So, Antonio Maffey, you've got Layden Robinson. Like, these are all either first year or second year players. So I think it probably makes sense to carry Nick Leverett. I still think there's room for some additions on this line. There's still some serviceable free agents out there, both at tackle and guard. I'd still look at bringing someone in, because otherwise it's going to be a really inexperienced line. And I think that could be a detriment at times, especially if you don't have Cole Strange, who he's not been amazing, but you still need someone who's a bit experienced in there, rather than just chucking a line full of kids out. So yeah, I think there might be additions.
Yeah,
but you've got to carry Leverett, I think, for now.
I mean, that's very true, but it's not like Cole Strange is a decent player. He's bang average. Even when he wasn't, even when he was fit and healthy, he was bang average. He wasn't. He was like this. Wow, he wasn't like this. He was just shutting. Yeah. He was just helping. He wasn't opening up any. The whole point of the tackle was supposed to protect the quarterback. The guards are actually supposed to create the lanes for the running backs. All the running was coming into the right-hand side, was going to Sidi So's side, was going to Antonio Maffey's side on the right side. Why? Because Cole Strange was losing his battles on a constant basis on the left-hand side. So to say that, Sidi So and Antonio Maffey, they're very young and still very inexperienced. They're only 1 year less experienced than Cole Strange. So
they are.
You can't see kind of comparing apples to oranges here, basically.
This is why I think it might make sense to try and add an experienced veteran in there. I know we have Nick Leverett, who's obviously been in the league a few years now. Like maybe that you need to look at someone who's maybe sort of late 20s, early 30s. It's available on the waiver wire now or free agency, just to try and beef that up a little bit. Because if Strange is going to start the season on PUP, then you're a man down already. City So I think will kick on this year. You've got Andrews on when I still think you need one more guy in there. There's a couple of guys out there, so we'll see. But it is still a concern, and I know it was a concern of all of ours and probably the wider fan base.
There is one tackle I would take within a heartbeat, but his injury history is so long. And that's David Bakhtiari.
Yeah, I mean, if you could get a healthy Bakhtiari, then that would be an immense.
You're solid. You're then solid on that left hand side there. And then,
but like you've still got DJ Humphries and Donovan Smith available. Like they'll be fine. Like that's what I mean. Like,
Donovan Smith would be more than capable. But no, there are going to be some interesting battles on the offensive line position. Right, let's move to the defensive side. We've only got a couple of options left to go now. So we've already done pass rush. So let's go linebacker, shall we? 6 options on available here. So you got Jawan Bentley, Matt Judon, Jelani Tavai, Joshua Uche, Anthony Jennings, and Sion Taki. I hopefully I got that pronunciation right. Spoke to a Browns fan who is on the Hurdle the Line podcast. Big up to them. And he basically said what you are getting out of him is an explosive guy who basically he gets his head down, just gets on and does his work. A real disruptor as well. So a bit like Christian Barmore in a way. You're looking at veterans like Raekwon McMillan, O'Shane Eximins, and Christian Ellis. They're all in the mix. Then they should figure to provide help on the special teams. The 6 that I've just said, they're pretty close to locks, and maybe a possible 7th. It could come from an aforementioned group. It'll be interesting to see if the new kickoff rules change the makeup of rosters in terms of type of players. Teams keep with coverage in mind. In the past, those units have been filled with backup defensive backs, but it's possible the tighter quarters will necessitate more bulk and opening the door for additional linebackers. So, I mean, McMillan showed bright moments, but then he was also getting injured as well. I don't know a lot about Elise and Eximins, but I will say this, though. Josh Uche and Anthony Jennings, they did come alive to the back end of the season when they basically picked up the slack where Matt Judon went down with an injury. Took a fair few games for them to realize that, but they performed admirably. And now they'll have their main pass rush back, hopefully. Then it would actually really, really help them massively.
You'd probably say those two are more, edge defenders, edge rushers, whatever you want to call them. I'd say that O'Shane Ximenez falls into that as well. He played on the edge for the Giants. Christian Ellis and Raekwon McMillan are probably your prototypical off-ball linebackers. I'm not sure. I mean, I think we're probably more likely to carry Christian Ellis than we are Raekwon McMillan just because of his special teams experience. And he's effective special teams player. McMillan, talented player, but he's just been blighted by injuries. And with the players in his position, just not sure where he gets in. And it's the same like whether O'Shane Ximenez is going to make the roster. So the one thing that is positive is the fact that both on the edge, outside linebacker and off ball, this is our strongest position group probably. I think probably one of the strongest linebacker groups in the NFL. I think PFF did rate it in the top 5. We are really good there. Like we don't have to worry about that at all. And we've always traditionally carried a good linebacker group, and we've got another one here. I guess the one thing it does mean is that the whole where does Mate Mapu fit in? Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? What do you do with him? Well, with the players that we have at linebacker, I'm not sure he's getting snaps there. So let's commit fully to him being a safety and see what he can do.
If we move into the safety positions, you look at Carl Duggar, Jabril Peppers, Marty Mapper, who's on the list, and Jalen Hawkins as well. They're going to be Duggar and Peppers are the tandem in the safety positions to start with. We know that for a fact. Okay, you talked about Mapu. Yeah, his versatility is valuable, so he can play in the secondary and close to the line of scrummage. So a little bit like it was the ex-Jets and Seahawks defender Adams.
Yeah,
someone like that. Yeah. Josh Bledsoe is a name we missed out here. He's got some experience in the program, but he's yet to crack the rotation. He can provide some value on special teams, so he could move over to special teams on that one. That's pretty much straightforward then regarding of the safety positions. We know who the top two are going to be. Mapu will play as more as the flex, and Jalen Hawkins, I don't know anything about. Nothing's been spoken about Jalen Hawkins. I think he may have been a free agent that we picked up or something. I don't know.
Yeah, quite a bit of experience in the league. Like he's just going to be kind of like a depth ad that's got a bit of experience. So, he could make the roster. What I would like to see us do with Mate Mapu, he's a tall, long, good athlete. Move him around the field. Get him doing some stuff that Derwin James does. Those big, rangy, athletic safeties, move him around, let him cause havoc. Duggar can do similar, but if you've got a guy like Mate Mapu that fits that physical profile, then just let him do it. I think that'd be fun.
Okay, I think we've got one more position to move into now. That's the defensive line. So obviously you got Christian Barmore, David Godchaux, Dietrich Wise Jr., Armon Watts, Keon White, Daniel Equale. I tell you what, I will say this: Daniel Equale, to the back end of the season, was actually performing very, very well. It seems like if it wasn't Uche or Jennings or Barmore getting to the quarterback, it somehow was that guy. And that makes it a little bit more interesting. But there are some tough choices to be made. Because you still got Sam Roberts in there. You still got Jeremiah Farms in here. One or both could stick around to some sort of capacity. We already spoke about Godchaux. He expressed some unhappiness about his contract. Hopefully, we do sort that out. Assume if he is in the fold, he will be sandwiched by Barmore and Wise with Armon Watts. I haven't seen much about Watts, so I can't really comment. Obviously, Keon White we spoke about already. Equale has been a steady interior presence in past situations, should return coming off an elbow injury, limited to 3 games in 2023. So there was a piece of the piece of the defensive line position there that we did lose in Equale. He only played 3 games in 2023. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think Daniel Equale has done probably a lot more than what we expected him to do, being the profile that he is. But yeah, you're right, Carl. He has had some good games and he's had some good moments. He's had some sacks and he's had some good pressures and stuff like that. So I think he's worth keeping around. I think if you look at the defensive tackles more than the defensive ends, obviously you have your absolute X factor in Barmore. You've got your kind of your run stuffer in Godchaux. You've got Equale, who's probably more of an interior pass rusher, but then you need Armon Watts as well because he's another big guy that's going to plug those gaps. So they're probably your 4, and then I'm not sure you're going to carry. Do you carry a 50T? I'm not sure. Maybe you give Sam Roberts another chance, but yeah, I think them 4 are probably all going to make the roster.
More than likely.
I think.
Go on, Nick.
I think as you look at the roster itself, as you look at the guys, as we walk down that list there, or he's a lock. I think as you look at the roster, there is like a very decent blend of both youth and veterans, and I think for a new era where you're building a new foundation and you're trying to create a new vibe around training camp and around the building and what have you. I think finding that blend between youth and experience is half the battle. And I think, Mayer has got the respect of, the veterans. He's got the ear of the youth, the younger guys. You know, I think that the roster as a whole, regardless of like who makes it and who doesn't, that those sort of list of lock players where they are definitely in. We've just said we've got some really good youngsters that I'm sure will kick on. We've got some good youngsters that we think they might kick on, and yet we've got some of those veterans that are absolute monsters that we're like, you know, they are really balling out. And I just think we are in a good place, I think.
We're certainly in a better place than where we were last year. And I think, you know, there's not too much expectation on this season. And if we win 5, 6, 7, 8 games, whatever, we're still going to be in a decent position draft-wise to pick up a top talent next year. Especially there's a couple of left tackles that are supposedly top 10 players that would be nice to get our hands on one of them. But yeah, I think, yeah, you're right. Like there's a good blend and there is talent on the roster. It isn't a talent poor roster. We're not like an Arizona where you can count on one hand how many good players they have. And if Drake Maye pans out and Jalen Polk pans out, then we're going to be a much better team. So yeah, I think there is reasons to be optimistic in certain aspects. There is one position battle we did miss though, and that is Chad Ryland going to keep his job?
Oh, yes. It's an open kicking competition, isn't it?
Because I don't. Joey Sly is not an elite kicker, but he's probably an upgrade at this stage.
He's what's the term of phrase you could have used it for? He is very streaky, is a word to say. He's this very streaky kicker. He can hit freaking 60-yard bombers with absolute ease, but then again he puts a 25-yarder wide left. You know, inconsistent. What we've never had in New England is inconsistent kickers up until we lost Gostkowski. Since we lost Gostkowski, we haven't really been the same when it comes to kickers.
Oh, Nick Folk done a decent enough job.
Just
didn't have much of a leg on it.
Folk did a solid job, yeah, until he got to the 45-yard plus line. Then obviously he could get it over the upright, so he kept whiffing it. So, you know, there's always that. But no, I think Chad Ryland is going to be the kicker for us, I believe. Bryce Barringer is the punter. You know that for a fact. Joe Cadada is the long snapper. Special teams that we got on here is Brendan Schooler, Christian Ellis, and Raekwon McMillan. Apparently, the intrigue here is in the kicking battle between Ryland and veteran Jerry Sly. That one could go either way, but for now, we'll side with the youth. The only other question will be how many spots will be devoted to special teams. Schooler is close to a lock in that regard, and McMillan and Ellis are strong possibilities. But if you want to include Marcus Jones in there as well as the kickoff returner, then he's also part of special teams as well.
I wonder how much this new kickoff change is going to change the way teams look at special teams. Are you going to have as many special teams specialists as they used to be called nowadays that they're changing it? I think that's going to be interesting. Like, yeah, I think Schooler will make the roster. I think Ellis possibly as well. Jones is your returner. McMillan, not sure. But yeah, I wonder whether teams are going to go, rather than devoting 3, 4, 5 core special teamers, whether they're just going to have 2, 3, you know, maybe 2, and be like, you know, depth players are just going to play those other positions because it's changing so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the fact that the new kickoff rule, if you just kick the ball through the back of the end zone and you don't land it in the landing zone, you give up the ball at the 30-yard line. Well, the ball was going to the 25-yard line as it is, so you're only actually giving up an extra 5 yards. It wouldn't surprise me, especially during preseason, if you see a lot of, you know, teams just kicking through the back end and giving up those extra 5 yards because they don't want to give away their hand at what they're planning. I know what you said, Carl, about, you know, waiting to see in preseason. I don't think you'll see anything special. You might see some teams kick it into the landing area. The guy catches it and might move a few yards in a very basic direction. I don't think you're going to be seeing some super special play. I mean, I think this is where anybody is missing Bill Belichick. Can you imagine having Belichick on a new rule Oh my, he'd be smashed. He'd have 60, 100 plays for the kickoff already, and it's only July. But
I know it's only, yeah.
I just think, and we're not going to see anything special in that place. But some teams are going to devote those players to that for that reason, And I think you're going to see some of those speedier receivers starting to play returner. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if you see someone like Tyreek Hill play a little bit of returning. You give him a little hole and he's gone. So
let's go for days.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But
yeah. Okay, one last thing before we go out of it, guys. So there was talks about us maybe trading for a wide receiver by the name of Brandon Aiyuk from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, according to reports, we actually tried to give the 49ers a second-round pick. They didn't want it. I'm going to make this assumption right now. We are not getting Brandon Aiyuk before the end of the trade deadline. I can safely say that for a fact right now. Because I'm going to give you some... I've actually found some statistics here, and they are very, very nasty. Nothing to do with the Patriots, by the way, or any other team. It's strictly for the San Francisco 49ers, okay? So hear me out. So without making another single move, the 49ers are projected to be about $38 million over the salary cap next season already. They are already upside down in their cap sheet, which is fine. They'll be able to find their way around it in order to move forward. But then they have to clear an additional $24.7 million off their cap sheet just to sign Aiyuk to a franchise tag, because that's what the going rate for wide receiver franchise tag is nowadays. So they'd have to clear about $63 million just to franchise tag him. But that's just to get him signed to the tag. That doesn't leave them any room to sign other free agents. They currently have Charvarius Ward, Dre Greenlaw, Devondre Campbell, John Feliciano, and about 35 other players about to be free agents in 2025. Bear this in mind, ladies and gentlemen, it's a 53-man roster you're allowed to have. This is what happens when you go all in for 3 years to try and win a Super Bowl.
And don't win one.
And don't win one, which thank you for stating the bloody obvious there, Nick. Okay. And on top of that, okay.
Trent Williams. Trent Williams is in his last year of guaranteed money, so technically they could cut him. They could cut him and save a lot of money next year. He's in his last year of guaranteed money.
Yep, they'll have to get Brock Purdy. Absolutely. So they'll have to give Brock Purdy an extension next off-season before he hits the final year of his contract, because they aren't going to want him to hit unrestricted free agency. And if he has another season like he had in 2023, they're looking at something upwards of $40 million a year. That's a lot of dough that needs to be accounted for before you even factor in a franchise tag for Brandon Aiyuk. If they have any plans to upgrade the roster at any other position, they'll need even more cap space to bring in other free agents who aren't already on the roster. My personal take on this, I think he plays out this year for the 49ers. He hits unrestricted free agency next season, and barring any significant roster and or contract moves, they won't be able to franchise tag him. Which means Brandon Aiyuk then becomes a free agent, and if we're in a decent position where, do you know what, we might be able to go back to the playoffs now, let's go get another top-notch receiver. Go get Brandon Aiyuk. We'll have a lot of cap space still.
Yeah, I would certainly be in favour of that. Why I know obviously we did offer a second round pick for him, and that's probably you probably could get a 1 if you're San Francisco. I think for the level of player he is. I think there might be an element of us wanting to see what we have in Polk and Baker first. Like, you don't want to then go out and get Brandon Aiyuk, who, okay, he's a surefire number 1, but like, you've got 2 young guys that you don't know what you've got in them yet, and if they both turn out to be studs as well, then you're gonna need to pay them in the future too. So, and then it creates a problem where you've got another man on your roster, and you then got to cut someone else. So, look, if Brandon Aiyuk is wearing a Patriots uniform this season, that's amazing, and we're all going to take it. But I'm not sure it's going to happen. The fact he's
Right.
turned up to training camp today is quite, I think that's an indicator that perhaps things aren't as bad as being made out. Will he still be a Niners player by the end of the season? Maybe not, but he might end up going elsewhere. But yeah, I'm not sure he'll be with us, even though I would absolutely love to have him because I think he's a fantastic player. I've been a big fan of him ever since he was in college. I was high on him coming out of the draft. But yeah, I would much prefer us to pull the trigger on trying to improve the offensive line at this stage. And if we get towards the trade deadline and there are players available and the wide receiver core isn't good, if Polk is not looking good, if Baker's not looking good, and KJ Osborne is our leading receiver with 220 yards on the season, then maybe you look to pull the trigger on someone who's available. Maybe if Aiyuk's available then, but I'd rather us put that investment into getting an experienced offensive lineman or two in there just to try and help. And Stephon Gilmore, obviously.
I guess Stephon Gilmore in, obviously, and I think we're in a good position to be in. Okay, gentlemen, it's been absolutely brilliant. We are officially back. We are on the road. Training camp starts tomorrow. If we got any more updates regarding Matt Judon, we will let you know. But until then, we will be back next week for another edition of the Patriots Touchback podcast. Please make sure that you smash the like button on your way out. You hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Tell all your friends, and also follow us on all our social media platforms on Twitter, on Facebook, and on various others. And you'll find our actual podcast on Spotify as well for more easy listening to. We'll be back next Tuesday for a little bit of a rundown of what's happened in training camp. But if we do have any breaking news, there will be uploads to the Patriots Touchback YouTube channel in the week if any news breaks out. But till then, my name's Carl. That's been Kieran. That's been Nick. And as always, go Patriots!
Haters.